have with me here today an incredible coach and an even better person, Leslie Huntington. Many know her as the head softball coach of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, where she will be entering her 24th season with the program. I'm going to pause. Did I say that right?
Yep, you did.
She is one of the most decorated, successful active softball coaches in all of NCAA Division III. These stats are so cool. Get this. She's the Blue Gold's all-time winningest coach and enters 2025 with a career record of 583 to 328 and 2 ties. She led the program to its first national championship in 2008. She is the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame. I'm going to restart because it's one of those days. Kara, if you're listening to this, you know the type of day I've had. Whenever you were editing this. Eau Claire?
Eau Claire.
All right. Check these out. Actually, I'm going to say listen to these. Sorry, Kara. Hopefully she catches this, or this is going to be a really hilarious intro. All right, we got it. We got it. All right. Ding, ding, intro. I have with me here today an incredible coach and an even better person, Leslie Huntington, a good friend of mine and a fellow mental performance coach. Many know her as the head softball coach of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, where she will be entering her 24th season with the program. She is one of the most decorated, successful active softball coaches in all of NCAA Division III. These stats are really cool to hear. Listen to these. She's the Blue Gold's all-time winningest coach and enters the 2025 season with a career record of 583 wins, 328 losses, and 2 ties. She's led the program to its first national championship in 2008. She's in the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame, 5-time Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference Coach of the Year, 7 WIAC regular season championships, 3 WIAC tournament championships, 9 NCAA postseason appearances, and she's coached 8 All-Americans. And that's not everything listed in her bio. But I believe that the first thing that she will tell you is that with all of these accolades and all of these teams and all of these wins, she has done it with a heart for service and a desire to simply be the best, refusing to be outworked, and the results simply followed. So with that, I would love to welcome Leslie. Welcome to the podcast, Coach.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for that introduction. I was like tearing up listening to that. So it is so cool to be here. I'm so happy to have you as a friend, as a mentor, as someone I can turn to, and just, super excited to be on the podcast.
I love it. So for the Fearless fam that's listening, you may have seen snippets here and there. As a mental performance coach community, I think one thing that we're discovering is that we just all really want to educate as many coaches, as many parents, as many players as possible. And so our conversation today, full disclosure, you and I talked about this. We have no questions. We just wanted to have a really cool conversation, mostly because you and I have had some interesting stories. I would love for you to share stories from the recruiting trail, what you're seeing as a college coach, what you're seeing as a mental performance coach. And so before we kind of kick into that, obviously you're kind of on the recruiting trail now. What is a day in the life like for you right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a really loaded question in the regard of just being, a really full answer. So I'll give you kind of it's almost like needing a week in the life to fully get the understanding of what recruiting is like during the summer. So it starts out usually on Mondays with emails starting to come in for the tournament that's coming up that weekend, whatever tournament it happens to be. Most oftentimes it's multiple tournaments in one weekend, and we can only be in one place at one time. So we really have to weigh out, like, where is the best use of our time? Where is the best use of our recruiting budget as far as the resources? And so that's how we kind of make our decision of where we're going to physically be that weekend. There are certain tournaments that we have on our calendar every summer because we've just gotten good results from going to those tournaments. Those are generally the places where we're going to see the kids that we want to see. We're going to see the kids that have reached out to us. And like I said, a big thing is, where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck? Because there are so many tournaments, there are so many kids, there are just like, it is a never ending process. I could spend the entire week, every week, all summer long doing nothing but recruiting, and I still wouldn't get it all done.
You don't just sit in a lawn chair and eat your concession stand food. You know, we think of this idea of, oh, it would be amazing to be a college coach and just you're out there with your clipboard and it's easy. But you really kind of opened my eyes a couple weeks ago when we had that conversation as you were gearing up for Chicago of, I mean, it's a slog. I mean, you're very busy. Can you go deeper into that? Like, what would it look like on a Saturday of a tournament?
Yeah. Well, what makes it easier is when a particular tournament uses the app called Tourney Machine, because you can go in and you can select your teams that you want to make sure, players have reached out to us and they'll tell us what team they're on. And I think that's actually one of the biggest challenges, is because there are multiple teams with the same name. And if a player is not very, very particular with which specific team they play on, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And so I'll go into that app, I'll favorite those teams so that they all show up in that comprehensive schedule. But we have also, we do a big spreadsheet of players that have reached out to us and have indicated that they're going to be at that particular tournament. I think players in general do a really good job of contacting college coaches and saying, Coach, I'm playing in this tournament. I play for this team. I graduate this year. I play these positions. And here is my schedule. Here's my pool play schedule for the weekend. When they can provide that type of information, we celebrate, because that's like, we don't have to do nearly as much legwork to get ourselves organized to make sure that we can see those players play. And in fact, the players who make that kind of effort are the ones that we're going to make the effort to see play on those weekends. So we put it into a big spreadsheet. Every single player that tells us I'm at this tournament, it's a big spreadsheet. We use a spreadsheet because then we can sort it by the time of day. We can sort it by whatever park they're playing at. And that way, that's basically our roadmap for the day.
My jaw dropped when I saw it.
Yeah, that's our roadmap for the day. And so in Chicago, it was the Stars and Stripes tournament that I was at. And on Thursday, that was a relatively easy day. I was able to stay at the same park the entire day. So I was there from about 9:30 in the morning until about 7:30 at night, just going from field to field to field to field, going down my list, making sure that I spent as much time as I possibly could watching every player. And then Saturday got a little bit trickier because I had watched a lot of players, or not Saturday, Friday, sorry. I'd watched a lot of players on Thursday. I didn't have as many to watch on Friday. But the challenge was the two locations that I needed to be at to watch players that day were 40 minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going solo, which a lot of coaches do, you really have to plan out, okay, I can be at this field at this park until this time. And then I absolutely have to go, because it's going to take me 40 minutes to get to the other park. And I get to be there for this long. So when you get there, you're hoping that player is playing. You're hoping that you get to see a couple of at-bats. You're hoping that they get a defensive rep of some kind. If they're a pitcher, you hope that they're in the rotation at that time. And then when the time hits, nope, I gotta leave, I gotta go back to the other park now. And so it's just, yeah, it's a roadmap, and we just work really hard to see as many kids as much as possible, so that we can make a reasonable, fair assessment of their ability.
And the realization that I had made was, is there an athlete that maybe would not be on that spreadsheet? What is the probability that you're going to see, recognize, and put that athlete on your list? That is slim to none, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, probably one of those athletes, maybe a pitcher or catcher, because they're getting the ball every single time, right? So it could happen. And in fact, that did happen down there. I was watching a team play, and their catcher really stood out to me, and their catcher had not been on my list. And I was like, I just kept watching and watching. I mean, I was watching the player that I was there to try and watch, but the catcher just kind of kept catching my eye. And so that was one example of a player that wasn't on our list that now will go on our list, because I happen to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And so they've really gotta, they've really got to stand out. They've really got to stand out in order for me to be like, oh, that's a player that I want to learn more about.
But I think there's two sides of that coin. If you're a parent listening to this, why would you leave that to chance? I think as a player, I always had the impression, if I could go back and redo the recruiting process, it's okay to bug the coaches. If Eau Claire is on your list and that's your dream school, you cannot email enough. You cannot provide enough information. I think sometimes we get in our heads as parents, as players, oh, I don't want to seem needy. I don't want to bug them. And it's like, the reality of it is you have a massive spreadsheet. How many emails do you get in a day? Just seeing the behind the scenes of this was very eye-opening. And so what's kind of your message to parents? Like, what's your recruiting advice?
Yeah. My recruiting advice is, athletes want us to want them. We want them to want us.
Mic drop.
And if they don't contact us and indicate that they have an interest in us, and let us know they're there, then yeah, we're probably not gonna, I mean, like you've said a couple of times already, you saw my spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to just watch a random game with nobody on that field that was on that list. And I was at that tournament until Saturday, midday. So 2 full days, because Thursday, like I said, and then Friday I was back out at 9:30. I was at the park from 9:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night on Friday. And then I was back out at 8 o'clock on Saturday, there till I watched 2 rounds. So it would have been 8, 9:30. I was there till almost noon on Saturday, and then I made the 5-hour drive home. And I'm not saying that to like, I'm not trying to say, oh, look what I did, right? That's not the point at all. But yeah, I mean, coaches are working hard. Coaches are working hard to find players. Like, part of our job is to win games. So we don't take that lightly. And I think, another point that I think is really important to talk about here is with regard to athletes reaching out to us, almost to the point of bugging us. I have one particular kid that shows up in my inbox like 2 to 3 times a week. You think I don't know that kid's name?
Right.
Like, I know that kid's name. I recall talking to her coach last weekend in Chicago. I recall watching her play shortstop, because that kid's name was in my inbox like 3 times a week leading up to that tournament.
Right.
And the other point I think that's important is we want them, and we try to teach our players when they come to play for us. One of the important skills that we work on is advocating for yourself. And that's what this is about. It's self-advocacy. And so what a great skill to learn as a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old is how to advocate for yourself when there's something that you want and something that you believe in. Because that's what we want you, those are skills we want you to learn and develop as a college student athlete.
Right. And think about the next 4 years. This isn't a light decision to be made. You're making an investment into, I don't want to recruit a kid and then realize, oh, it's not a good fit, or, it's not a good fit with the school. It's not a good fit with the program, or they weren't committed. You're kind of making an investment, and in return, the athlete's making an investment as well. And so again, it goes back to that. We want you to want us. I think that's palpable. I think that's felt. It's obviously not just a copy pasted email. If it's your top school, tell the coach, oh my gosh, your campus is beautiful. This is why I'm excited about this. You're in my top 5. I mean, what have you seen that has kind of, going back to, you said, that catcher stood out on the field. How do they stand out virtually?
Yeah, well, virtually, that constant communication, that, like I said, me looking at my inbox and seeing that player's name show up 3 times a week. And video is so important in the recruiting process. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, doesn't have to be long. But video is so important, because an initial email, an introductory email, if they're sending that without video, I mean, one of the first questions I'm going to ask is, do you have video? Can you send me video? Because I want to get an initial assessment by watching video to say, do their skills match what we're looking for right now? And we know that we can make them better softball players, but we also want to see certain things on video. There are things that we're looking for. We're going to look and see, like, how well do you throw the ball, for example? Because if you can't throw and you can't catch, you can't play softball. That's the reality. Your swing, we can tweak your swing and make you better. One of the things that we look for in a swing is, can we get any kind of an idea of what their eye-hand coordination is like and what their bat speed is like? Because we can tweak their timing, we can tweak their mechanics. If they have great eye-hand coordination and they have good bat speed, we can do a lot with that. So it's those types of things that make video so important. With a pitcher, I want to see a view behind the pitcher, so that when she says I'm throwing a rise ball inside, I can see if that rise ball, what kind of control she has. Is she actually throwing the rise ball inside? Or is she throwing a rise ball that's not getting up, number one, and it's right down the middle of the plate? So video, I can't say enough about how important it is to have some video. I think that, one of the struggles I have is with all the game video that players are using. And I understand it's really easy. Game Changer clips them for them, like Game Changer does all the work as far as the clips and all that. It's crazy how that technology has progressed, but it's not always very easy to get an assessment of a player by watching their game video from their Game Changer clips.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because of the angle, the distance, the fuzziness.
Right.
I think one of the assumptions too, if we bring in the mental aspect, is that we let a lot of our limiting beliefs of the video has to be polished or it has to be in a good facility. I mean, like a lot of my one-on-one clients, I would say that 50% of them that are going to play at a really high level and make it in college, a lot of them have scrappy corners in their basement or in their shed. And so what I'm hearing you say is, don't be afraid to just send the video. You can gather so much more from those videos than the bomb you crushed one time in a game that you sliced and diced.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's why we try to show up before a game, if at all possible, to watch warm-up repetitions. I'd much rather watch warm-up repetitions than watch a game, because that gives me a better idea of what they can do.
Sure. So like physical skills, you're obviously evaluating, can they throw, can they hit? Obviously you can see that in warm-ups, but let's kind of switch gears. Tell me about the mental side, because you and I are, we geek out in that world. So obviously don't give away all your secrets, but like, what are you looking for? Do you make those notes on your spreadsheet?
Yeah, I don't think they're secrets. I mean, whenever, whenever I'm around softball coaches, we all talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I just yesterday had a conversation on the phone with a travel ball coach about this very thing, because I was watching one of her players last weekend, and she said to me, oh, she was pretty bummed because she didn't have a great day at the plate, and then of course she made an error on defense, and you were there watching, and she was disappointed and everything. And this travel ball coach told me that she tried to assure this player, or reassure this player, that, hey, it's not what you're not doing that she's watching, right? And it's exactly true. Like, I'm watching the response to what happens. I'm not watching, like, I would rather see you make an error. I would rather see you strike out, because I want to see how you're going to handle that.
Can
Like,
you repeat that, please, like 7 times
yeah,
for parents? And like, guys, your college coaches, whether you're committed or not committed, they understand the game at a very high level, or they wouldn't be a college coach. They know that mistakes are part of the game because you're human. Ah,
yeah. And the thing of it is, like, getting upset about those things, and we've talked about this, right? Is the emotional response appropriate for the situation? So getting upset because you struck out when you know that your potential college coach is there watching you. I get that. Of course, like, that makes sense. But how long do you hang on to it? And then
yes.
how does that manifest? Does it manifest in throwing equipment? Does it manifest in walking into the dugout and your teammate is trying to give you a high five and you don't acknowledge her? Does it manifest in going out to the field and your chin is down and you're dragging your feet in the dirt because you're still thinking about that strikeout? Because if that's how it manifests, then that's a concern. But if you're upset in the moment and you've got to take a second to get your batting, it's no different than what we teach our current players. There's a period of time after an at bat. Once you go in the dugout, the batting gloves come off, the helmet comes off, the at bat is over. That's the point where it's gone. It's done. We forget about it. So I'm watching the same exact thing when I watch recruits play.
Absolutely. And so let's get into even more juicy. They're not even secrets, but I think parents forget. Can you tell us about, I mean, how much do you pay attention to parents? Do you make those connections? Have you ever crossed a girl off your list because of her parents, because of, attitude coaches? Do you have any stories like that?
Um, I I do pay attention to parents. You know, when you think about, and I pay attention to how recruits treat their parents. How are they talking to them? Are they screaming at them from the dugout, and the parents are in the stands and the kid screams, get me a water, get me a Gatorade, whatever. I mean, you hear coaches all the time talk about, carry your own bat bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need somebody to carry your bat bag. I can guarantee you, when you're at the college level, you're carrying your own bat bag, right? Because we don't have a manager for every player that's going to carry your bat bag. You're carrying your own. So carry your own bat bag. The water, the Gatorade in the middle of a game, that type of thing. To me, that's about anticipating and being prepared. That's about, you know what? It's a really hot day. Maybe I should have my own little cooler that has some extra water bottles in it and have that with me in the dugout or right around the corner from the dugout, so that all of a sudden in the middle of the game, I don't realize I'm out of water and now I got to scream across the field to mom and dad to go to the concession stand and get me more water.
Yeah.
Right? So it's preparation, it's anticipation, it's really it's ownership. It's ownership. And I can speak with pretty strong confidence that that's what college coaches are going to want. They're going to want players who own their crap, right? They're going to want players that take responsibility for this stuff, right? Because if we go on the road and we're 3 hours from home and you forgot your cleats, guess what? Nobody's bringing your cleats. If we go on the road and you don't have the right jersey, okay, well, you know what? We might be able to save your rear end because we take extra uniforms with us when we travel because of in case of blood or something like that.
Oh, but
So,
I'm old school.
but,
Like I think it goes back to old school is you forgot your cleats, you don't play. You forgot your
yeah,
uniform, you don't play. And I
yep,
I I don't want to speak ill, but I think we just have so many conveniences now
sure.
that we didn't have before.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Because sometimes things happen. I mean,
Right.
funny thing, like on Facebook the other day, there's coaches that are in this thread from a previous Division III coach, and she brings up having these nightmares about forgetting lineup cards, you know,
Yeah.
forgetting to take lineup cards of the game. I have had those nightmares several times, so things happen and we can work with it when things happen. But ultimately, really what we're trying to do is really teach them how to take that ownership and be responsible for themselves and to prepare and plan ahead and
Yeah.
all those things. So I do pay attention to parents. I pay attention to the relationship between the players and the parents. Um, I don't, honestly, where I go anyway, I don't see a lot of negative stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you're
I
at
see,
higher level tournaments, you're intentional about where you're recruiting
I
too.
see, I see pretty positive
Yeah.
interactions between student athletes and their parents, um, which always just, it makes me happy. Um, but, there is one thing that I think is a really, really big red flag when it comes to players and parents and their communication with coaches. And that red flag is talking negatively about other people. Um, Talking negatively about other coaches that they've had, complaining about their coaches. Because as soon as I hear that, I think to myself, I'm next.
Yeah.
If that's what you're doing and telling me about that, then I'm going to be the next victim on your list. I'm going to be the
It
next
goes
coach.
back to advocating for yourself and ownership. I mean, this is the common thread through this whole conversation is someone who is strong in their own self-worth, their self-confidence, and they're owning their career and they're owning that. The
Mhm.
ego doesn't get in the way.
Right,
And
right.
so those that don't get that concept are very quick to blame
Yep,
or
exactly.
point fingers or make excuses.
Exactly, exactly. So that's a major red flag.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, what parent doesn't want to, what parent isn't proud of their kid, and they're going to tell you, and that's all good, like it's all good, and parents, well, they'll a lot of times, well, I'm gonna just brag on her for a minute. I'm like, okay, good, brag on her.
Yeah.
Tell me about her. Tell me what you got to say,
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a matter of really it's all about building relationships with them because when you start to build relationships with them, you start to learn about their background and where some of this might have come from, and then is it something that you can work with? Or is it something that is beyond what you're capable of working with and beyond what you're capable of helping them with as far as any kind of maybe behavior change or that type of thing, Um, I like to, I personally like those things. Those things are personal challenges for me, and so I welcome opportunities to help these young women grow in ways that a lot of people look at them and say, "Oh, coach, we don't want her in our program." And I'm like, "Well, no, wait a minute. Let's find out more about her. Let's figure out where some of this stuff is coming from, and we probably can help. We probably can help." So I give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
And you don't have a program with that much success if you're not building young women, not just softball players.
Yeah, yeah. It's about that first. It's the winning is a byproduct.
Yeah.
We all hear coaches say that all the time. If you do if you do all the things well, if you do them the quote unquote right way, winning happens, and you don't have to work to win. You work at the other stuff.
Yeah. What's that saying? You don't pick up your trophies on game day, you pick them up at practice. What is that quote? Help me out.
I know what you're saying. I don't know exactly what the quote is, but
You earn your trophies at practice. You just pick them up on game day.
there we go. There we
Something like
go.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But I think about, kind of the idea of society is very quick to chase success. Obviously, your program has had a lot of success, and I'm sure that there's a lot of young women that are hungry to be recruited by you and to be in your program. But I think what we forget sometimes is that is culture, it's mindset, it's, you may not get immediate playing time, but you're going to be part of something greater. If I were to give some of my athletes an option, do you want to go play somewhere where they win all the time and it's a decorated program, but the culture is toxic, or it's grind? They are softball students, not student athletes. And I think my advice for a lot of girls is really, there is something magic when you find the program that's a right fit. It does feel like home. Like you'll have that knowing of like, this is where I'm meant to be. Mm-hmm. And it's a culture thing.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. And that's why, we've worked so hard to build that. We work really hard to maintain it. From our core values that up until partway through the summer were painted on the back of our dugout, and then the wrap that we had started peeling off, so we're just redoing it. But the core values were painted on the back of our dugout. They're talked about every single day. There's rarely a conversation that I have with a player that doesn't involve one of our core values. It just, when it becomes that much a part of what you do, it's so easy to have those conversations. Even the tough conversations are easier because you're speaking a common language, and the players know what to expect. They know that I'm going to come at them with those core values. They know what they mean. So here's a funny story. So a few years ago, we had a Zoom session with some of our alums. And it was in the classroom, had the current team in there, had like four or five alums on the Zoom. And they were talking about the culture. And at the time of these alums being in the program, we didn't have this set of core values that we feel so strongly about now. And so we were talking about the core values. And so I look at the current team sitting in the classroom and I said, okay, guys, tell the alums, what are our core values? It was crickets.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh crap, we are not doing a good job with our core values here. If they cannot tell them what the core values are, I am failing. So from that moment on, it was like, okay, everybody is going to understand what these are. They are going to know what they mean. They're going to know what they look like in every realm of their lives. And it, like, we joke sometimes, about pounding those core values in, but they know them and they talk about them. And when they start to use those words and they start to use that language, you're like, okay, we're doing something right. We're doing something.
Yeah. And I think part of it is you recognize that as a coach, and instead of, grumbling about it, you actively made a change, and now it's become that intentionality that you fostered. But I think the mistake a lot of coaches, how many core values do you have?
We have, what are BLUGOLDS? I always forget. 8.
Yeah. So it's easy to remember because it's your mascot. Yeah. And I think that's a mistake that we make a lot, is that there's either too many, they're random, they're coach dictated, and there's no player buy-in. It's like you could rattle them off because you have that acronym, right? And so I think there's an element of, okay, how do we get buy-in? You have to meet your players where they're at too.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it's something, I mean, I'm super proud of it. We've worked really hard to develop it. We're working really hard to maintain it. And, I think the feedback that, you know, you talk about buy-in. I think one of the keys to that is that I've walked the talk when it comes to telling the players that I want their feedback and then taking their feedback and acting on it. And it had to do with recruiting. And as far as, you know, a recruit that they're like, Coach, yeah, I don't know that I want to be her teammate.
Wow.
And I was like, whew, okay, you know, and so I'm like, you know, you have to respect, because again, they're protecting the culture,
Yeah.
you know, and I was super proud of them for that. They're like, you know, we think she's a good player, but she's like, this is not a good fit. And I was like, okay. And
What
then
happened?
I took action on it and we didn't recruit her.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
think about Gen Z. I mean, Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok. Leslie, one of my girls, she found, I didn't realize this, Game Changer has film and you can lock it or unlock it. She wanted to find out the teams that they were playing. And so she would go and find until she could find a team that the team they were playing had played so she could watch game film. It's like they have access to so much. They're like super sleuths. So if they want to
yes.
find something out about a recruit, they're going to find it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we have a social media committee. So we have different committees on our team, and one of them is social media. So not only are they responsible for, you know, creating social media posts and things like that, but they're also, you know, if we're recruiting a player, I'll go to one of them and I'll say, hey, can you do a little recon?
Yeah,
Because
they call that creeping, coach.
yeah, okay, whatever you want to call it. I call it vetting.
Yeah, we gotta stay a little professional. I just so many good insights, and it brings back so many memories of I think it goes back to just like enjoying your 4 years and playing for a coach that you love and being connected. I mean, it all just boils down to you just want every girl to experience 4 amazing years. And there's so many moving pieces. There's recruiting, there's mental game, there's physical game, 6 a.m. lifting. I would go back.
Yep,
I would
absolutely.
go back and do it in a heartbeat. It was hard, but I would go back and do it all over again. Those were some of the best years of my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I just, um, you know, I feel like I'm at a point in my career where it's actually becoming, I know this might sound really, really crazy, but it's actually becoming even more fun because of the systems that we have in place and the leadership that we have right now, you know, that we've had for a few years now. We've just had leaders that have, you know, you hear coaches talk about like coach fed, player led programs. I mean, if you can get to a point where, you know, all my job is, and I tell our leaders this, I'm like, I want my job to be to just course correct you if you need it. This is your team. I want to course correct when you need it. I will support you when you need support. Never ever going to let you just fall or drown or whatever it is. I'm never going to let that happen, but take it and run with it. Take it and
But
run
that
with
doesn't happen without your intentionality first,
it. Exactly.
and the work that
Exactly.
you put in. That
Yep.
reminds me, I wrote a note on a sticky note to bring this up. And we haven't even talked about this in our mastermind because this is just a recent development. But one of the things that I've been implementing with the teams that I do mental performance coaching on is the idea of binary actions. So in computer programming, when you give a code, it's ones and zeros so the computer can run through this code, and there's no in between. So the idea is that if it's a yes, or the on switch is a 1 and the off switch is a 0. And so based on the computing, I'm kind of butchering this, but the idea is that there's no in between. It's not a scale of 1 to 10. It's not ABC. And I've been implementing this with some of my teams. And it's this conversation of, are you a 1 or are you a 0? Are you in? Are you out? Are you holding up to the expectations? Are you pulling your weight? Is your energy right? Are you showing up to practice? Are you towing the line? And you could even do all of your core values. Hey, how are we doing on B? How are we doing on L? Is it a 1 or is it a 0? And I think it, again, going back to that player-led program, is I think what's interesting, and I don't know if any of these guys will listen, but I'm only working with one semi-pro football team, so they're going to know that I'm calling them out. But the quarterback has really struggled to get buy-in from his teammates, and it gives him a common language of, I don't have to get on your butt as a teammate. All I have to do is go up to you now and say, hey, what are you? And make them say it, and I think it takes the pressure off that if you're going to give the keys to your program to your players, give them a structure, give them some structure. And then it's, hey man, you said you were a 0, not me. Now what are we going to do about it?
I love that. I love that. And that's a lot like the red light, yellow light, green light, when you're talking about, the routines and stuff like that, and awareness, because we teach that system, and that makes it really easy too, because we'll talk about a player approaching another player when they recognize that maybe they're not in a green light, and just going up to them. And I've done this with a player too, where I'll recognize, and I'll go up and I'll just kind of go right close to her, and not call her out in front of the whole team, just go right close to her and say, hey, what color is your signal light right now?
Ooh.
And then they have to go, yeah, it's yellow. And I'm like, okay, well, you have a routine for that, right? Yep, yeah. I do. Okay, then let's go through that routine and let's see if we can get back to green.
Yeah, and we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We're in traffic together.
Yep.
Do you ever talk about what lights you're in as a coach?
I don't necessarily talk about it, but I do definitely self-reflect on it.
Yeah.
And late in the season last spring, was right as I was reading the book, It Takes What It Takes. And I found myself quite often standing in the third base coach's box saying, neutral, 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 be neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. What action do I need to take right now? It's not about how I feel. It's about what I do. So those are things that we're continuing to teach our players. But I love it. The binary part, I love it, because our leadership structure is one where we have squad leaders, and they each have their own squad that they're in charge of. But then we also have accountability partners. So that binary piece with the accountability partners, think about an underclassman with an upperclassman accountability partner, and how intimidating that might be for an underclassman. Well, now we've just given them that non-threatening way of holding that upperclassman more accountable.
Yeah, upwards. Not the upperclassman down of, hey, freshman, pull your weight.
Exactly.
It goes upwards. It goes both ways.
Yep, exactly.
So you know what this is making me think of? Your DMs and your email, whatever way you want people to contact you. You're just going to get so many messages from this podcast. I can already tell. Someone who has had so much success, you understand the mental game, you understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. I just have been so blessed to have you in our mental performance mastermind and to hear your perspective. And so if a coach, a parent, a player, recruiting rules, I don't know about that, but what is the best way, if somebody has questions or they want to learn more from you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Oh, great question. I would say probably my social media DMs. And I say that just because it keeps that separate from my email. My email is, like mainly recruiting.
Back to the spreadsheet.
Back to the spreadsheet, right? So I would say my DMs, especially now that, you're holding me accountable to posting more often on my social media. So, I'm working really hard at staying with that. So I am on social media more often, now within the past month or so, and I plan to continue that going forward. So I would say Instagram, Twitter, DM, my Facebook page, Huntington Mental Performance. If anybody wants to jump in there, I post the same thing pretty much all three places. So wherever they are most often on social media, one of those three places is probably the best place.
Awesome. And Kara will fix up all of our podcast notes. Kara, you're amazing. If you're listening to our podcast recording, for those of you guys that don't know, Kara is our community manager and she does an amazing job. So we'll get all of those links from you and make sure that we link those as well. And I would be missing a huge opportunity as we're kind of wrapping up. I know we're close on time. Have to ask the time traveler question. If you were a time traveler and you could go back in time and tell your past self one message, what would you say?
I would say, put your ego aside and, remember or think about really why you're doing what you're doing. And it's not about me.
So good. So many good nuggets today in our conversation. I knew this would be amazing, and an hour has already come and gone. So thank you for your time today. I really do appreciate it. And I know you're busy, and we'll continue to carry on the conversation. And I'm just so appreciative of your knowledge and your contributions to the softball world and the mental performance world and all the good things to come.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. This is fun. And yeah, an hour flies by because when you're passionate about something and you're talking about it, it just, time goes away. So this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.